I just wanted to welcome you all. Thank you very much for your patience. This is actually our team's first live webinar, so we're kind of working out some kinks. As many, we practiced it many times before leading up to it, but it's bound to happen, having a little bit of technical difficulties and glitches. So thanks very much for bearing with us for the few moments while we tried to get ourselves sorted. But yeah, so I just wanted to welcome you to tonight's Second Nature event, Begin Your Plastic-Free Journey, which is a waste webinar hosted by Waverley Council. While we are just waiting for the last couple of people to come in from the waiting room, can everyone give me a wave if you can hear me? For those of you that are on screen, lovely, wonderful, awesome. So you can hear me, that's great, that's good news. Also just letting you know, we're gonna keep everybody muted just to minimize any of the background noise. But we have the chat active, so if you wanted to hop on, say hello to everybody, tell us where you're from, if you're from the Waverley area, if you're from outside the Waverley area, hop on and let us know. It'd be great to hear from you. And yeah, we are going to be able to have a chance for questions, but we're going to probably leave the questions more so towards the end of the night. And you'll have Liz. Liz will be the moderator. So you'll see her. Yeah, she's in the window there giving you guys a wave. So she's going to be moderating the questions and things for us on the chat as well. But okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to start with acknowledging, I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal and Gadigal people who traditionally occupied the Sydney coast. I would also like to acknowledge Aboriginal elders, both past and present. So again, yeah, welcome to the event. We're really excited about this event because it's just in time for Plastic Free July. My name's Leslie, and I'm going to be your MC for the evening, and I'm a Sustainable Waste Officer at Waverley Council. I'm passionate about working on projects that help reduce waste, improve our recycling, and reduce litter as well. And my journey started back in about 2011. I went to a Take 3 for the Sea event, and it was a movie screening on the movie Maggot. So some of you may have seen it before, some of you may have not. It's a really good one, but it really opened my eyes to the issues around single-use plastics and why it's important to reduce our waste. And now I'm so much of a waste warrior that I even tackle things like putting my daughter in reusable nappies, which can be a bit of a challenge, but also easier than you think. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I do want to introduce you to Liz. She's also one of our one of our Sustainable Waste Officers at Waverley Council. Liz, can you just give us a quick hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and what started you on your waste journey?
Hi, yes, I'm Liz. And like Leslie, I'm a waste nerd, and I would say that my journey probably started in around 2010. I was living in Canada and I started volunteering with the Surfrider Foundation and probably did a million beach cleanups. And I think that what really motivated me was learning about the ocean gyres and all the plastic in the ocean. It motivated me to think about my own waste and how I could get on the path to less plastic and less waste. And many years later, I work in sustainable waste, and a lot of those initial hurdles I had to overcome are pretty much habits. So I'm really excited. Lindsay was one of the first voices that I heard from when I moved to Australia. I started reading her blog, learned a lot from her. So I'm just really excited to have her share tips and her story with us tonight.
Awesome. So tonight we're going to be having a conversation about plastics, and we're going to be exploring the challenges and the opportunities that come along with that. That come along with plastic-free living in general. We also have an opportunity to hear some insight from Council on why we're focusing on waste avoidance measures. I'm going to have a quick sidebar with that. One of our technical difficulties that we were saying that we were having is Beth. We're working on her video and her audio, so stay tuned on the Council one. But
she's here, Leslie, she's here.
Is she here? Can we see Beth? Yay, I can see you. Okay, sorry, that's awesome, awesome. So we're gonna have Beth, who is the Manager of Sustainable Waste at Waverley Council. And we also have Lindsay, who's an educator, speaker, and author, and a passionate zero waste and plastic-free advocate. So these are our two amazing speakers that we have, and we're gonna be hearing first from Beth, and then followed by Lindsay, and then we're going to have a Q&A opportunity at the end of it. So I just wanted to introduce to you Beth a little bit more. So as I said, that Beth, she's the manager of sustainable waste at Waverley Council, and she's been working with council for about the last 5 years. And prior to council, Beth worked in Canada at an environmental consultancy for 5 years. And at the moment, she works on programs to target sustainable waste, education, and she works on achieving council's desired outcomes to become a zero waste community. So she's a bit of an advocate for waste avoidance and for circular economy, and she focuses on supporting Waverley's community to make sound, educated decisions for waste and recycling. So, Beth, if you could kick us off, please. Could you tell us a little bit about what started your journey on waste, and yeah, why did you decide to follow that path?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie, and thanks for having me, everyone, and for joining us tonight to talk about plastics. It's really nice to have so many people here together on this journey and discussion. So my journey started when I was really young. Actually, my family was always waste conscious, so I grew up mostly without plastic, and it was just the normal thing. And then as I got older and gained a greater understanding of how plastic impacts our environment, I became an advocate for living plastic free. And I pursued a career in local government and waste management to help others in our community on their journey. So in my role at council, I oversee education programs, policy and planning, and waste enforcement. And so all of these offer different avenues to target soft plastics. And one thing that we can't do in local government, unfortunately, is ban soft plastics or straws, for example. If only it were that easy. We can only enforce the laws and regulations set by the state government. However, it's not completely dire, as we have local government controls through policy and planning, and we work closely with the community to build capacity for change. Sorry, it's my son bringing me some water. Just had a bit of a challenging start to this evening. Sorry, my computer just started working. So we also can influence the direction of state government, however, and we provide input into their strategies and policies, and we participate in working groups. So right now, the New South Wales government is preparing for a 20-year waste strategy, along with a plastics plan. And I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with those documents that have been on public exhibition for a while, and feedback was provided in early May. Excuse me for a minute. So individuals along with local government provided input into those documents. And the 20-year strategy, we're quite excited about. This is a long-term strategic focus where communities, industry, and all levels of government work together to build resilient services and markets for waste resources. The strategy will guide our work at local government, and because our programs are mostly funded by the state government, it's imperative that we align with the targets and direction of the state government. And the New South Wales Plastic Plan will be an important part of this long-term strategy, as it sets targets to reduce the amount of plastic we generate, increasing recycling rates, reducing plastic pollution, and their goal is to make New South Wales a global leader in plastic research and solution development. So quite ambitious, I would say. So our community in Waverley is extremely active on the issue of single-use plastics, and that helps shape our feedback into these kinds of documents. So, over time, Waverley has developed a reputation for leadership on the issue of plastics, as we are one of the few councils that has monitored litter on our beaches for many years, and we've targeted single-use plastics through numerous successful campaigns and partnerships with community groups. So this means that when we provide feedback on this issue to the state government, they're listening. And it's really important that you, the community, let us know your thoughts and participate in these programs so that we can really represent you in our feedback. So in May, we submitted a formal submission on the New South Wales Plastics Plan. We focused on waste avoidance, in that, we shouldn't be introducing plastic products if there's no market for the plastic at the end of its life, as those materials will likely end up in landfill and potentially as litter. By creating markets for plastic waste, these materials can remain circular and remade into new materials. And that's our goal. That's where we're transitioning to. We also pushed for mandatory recycled content in new products, controls around the import of plastics from overseas, and that hard to recycle plastics should not be created in the first place. So for example, black plastic has such a dark color that it prevents it from easily being recycled into new products. So that's a very low grade commodity. We don't really want to see that anywhere. And other products, for example, like composite materials like Tetra Paks, they have different layers of materials. So they might have a layer of paper, aluminum, and wax. And this again prevents it from being recycled in New South Wales because the technology is just not available. So I think we're going to share a link to the draft New South Wales plastic plan, and I encourage you to have a look. The state government advises that they're going to finalize the plan and release it to the public in late 2020, so stay tuned for that. And if there is one thing that we want you to know about plastics, it's that citizen advocacy works. Participation, persistence, and patience have helped tremendously. This year is a big one for plastic waste, and I encourage everyone to have a say and call your local representative, tell them what you think, and that this is a priority for you. And keep in touch with council. Thank you.
Awesome, Beth. Thanks very much. That's really helpful to hear a little bit of the insight of council's workings. And yeah, just for those of you who don't really, I guess, get to see the inside of council and the policy side and procedure side. So yeah, that insight's really valuable. Thanks, Beth, for that. If you do have any questions, you can either hold on to them or pop them in the chat at the end whenever we get to the Q&A. But you did mention something about writing letters, Beth, and side note, there is going to be a letter writing workshop for MPs throughout the month of July as part of the events that we're doing. So if you haven't had a look at the list, we'll be sending out more information about that later, but that just made me think of it just then, that if you wanted to, figure out how do I even write a letter to an MP, we've got a workshop for you. So great. Awesome. So moving along. So our next speaker for the night, who we are so delighted to have with us, even if it's just online, is Lindsay Miles. Lindsay Miles is an educator, speaker, author, and a passionate zero-waste plastic-free living advocate, and she's been helping others live more meaningful lives with less waste and less stuff. She's been sharing ideas, tips, tricks, and strategies on her website, Treading My Own Path, since 2013. So if you haven't had a look at her website, look it up. And her first book, Less Stuff, was published in 2019, and her second, The Less Waste, No Fuss Kitchen, has been published recently in June. So originally from the UK, Lindsay now lives in Perth, Western Australia. Welcome, Lindsay. If you could tell us, start us off by telling us a little bit about your journey to zero waste, a little bit about what inspired you to start, how long has it been, and what have you learned about yourself along the way?
Cool. Hello, thank you for having me. Okay, so yeah, thinking about my kind of journey to, reduce waste and sustainability and all of that. I started out in 2012. I always think of that as my kind of epiphany moment. And I thought that I was great at sustainability because I had a full recycling bin. Like, it was so full. I was great at sorting out the recycling, putting everything in the recycling bin, even the things that maybe weren't recyclable, because the thing about the recycling symbol, it's kind of like a get out of jail free card, you think, oh, put it in the recycling bin and it'll go away, and kind of didn't really give any more thought to sustainability other than filling the recycling bin. And then I went to the library one day and I saw this poster on the wall and it said, could you give up plastic for the month of July? And I thought to myself, like, of course I could. Like, I've got reusable shopping bags already. Like, how hard is that really going to be? And of course, then I went home and looked in the pantry and looked in the bathroom and looked in the kitchen and looked all around my house and realized that everything is made of plastic. And, like, everything in my pantry was plastic wrapped, vacuum wrapped, shrink wrapped, bubble wrapped, glad wrapped, everything was made of plastic. And I felt really embarrassed because, I did genuinely think that I was a sustainability superhero for putting things in the recycling bin. And it had kind of never occurred to me what else I could be doing. And so, I'm looking in the fridge and I'm thinking, well, like I could buy carrots without a plastic bag, or looking in the pantry, you know, I could buy olive oil that's not in a plastic bottle. And I kind of think, you know, when people say plastic free living, it sounds really difficult, but when you break it down into tiny little swaps, like could you buy apples loose, or could you buy something in a tin rather than a plastic bottle, it suddenly breaks it down to kind of be a lot more easy. And so sign up to this challenge, Plastic Free July, and started making swaps one by one by one by one. Then it got to August, and the thing about August is that you can't go back to Plastic August when you've done Plastic Free July. It's one of those things that once you're kind of on the bandwagon, I think you kind of can't go back. Plus, I think, I guess the thing about Plastic Free July and that moment in the library was like, I really hate being wrong about stuff as well. And so the fact that I thought it was going to be easy, I was like, I've got to make it work. And it's interesting, Lindsay, that you say like Bagot was one of your kind of moments, because as part of Plastic Free July, they did a screening of Bagot. And it's just one of the best, even though it's now probably about 10 years old, it's still just an amazing documentary, because it talks about the issues, like the environmental issues and the political issues and the health issues and all of those kinds of things. But it just makes it seem really accessible. The guy that's kind of the everyman, they call him in the movie, like he's just going to the supermarket and going to the coffee shop and buying an ice cream, and you kind of watch it and you think, oh, I can buy an ice cream in a cone, or I can go to the cafe and dine in, and it just made it all seem really accessible. And so that was kind of where I started. And from there, I guess, like I learned a bit about some of the problems of plastic. And I think, you know, we all talk about the problems of plastic, and it's definitely not somewhere that I kind of like to focus, because we all know the problems. But some of the things that I guess I didn't realize was, you know, I didn't realize plastic was made of fossil fuels. I just sort of thought it came from the plastic factory, was made into plastic things, and never really given any thought to what that actually meant. And, you know, when I found out that we're using fossil fuels to make stuff that's designed to be used for like 5 minutes, you know, like plastic cutlery or individual sachets of ketchup or those kind of things, it kind of just didn't make any sense. And, you know, if you're someone who leaves a room and you turn off the light because you're trying to reduce your fossil fuel consumption, well, actually refusing the plastic teaspoon, it's kind of the same thing. And I guess the thing I really like about waste, or like waste reduction, obviously not waste, is the fact that you really see the impact that you're having. So when you turn the light out, you don't feel the planet just kind of cooling, you know, but when you don't put stuff in the bin and you don't put stuff in the recycling, you notice the impact you're having. And I kind of think before I got interested in waste, I always thought sustainability was something that like rich people did, you know, with the grand design houses. So you build the house. So when you're rich, you have the house and it's all, you know, like passive solar, and it's got solar panels and rainwater tanks and vegetable gardens. And so it was always something that was kind of in my future that I didn't need to think about. And really, I'm never going to have a grand designs house. So it was also something that was kind of not relevant to me. And I guess the thing I really love about waste, or waste reduction, is that, you know, all of us create waste or have the potential not to create waste, like every single day, multiple times a day. So it's just something that's really kind of accessible. And so I guess the other thing, you know, Beth sort of already talked about this, is this problem with recycling. Like I used to love recycling, thought it was fantastic, thought, you know, the recycling symbol was the get out of jail free card, and kind of learned a few things about recycling. One of which, just because a manufacturer prints "please recycle" on the packaging, that doesn't make something magically recyclable. Like if infrastructure doesn't exist, if there's not a market to buy the product, if brand new plastic's cheaper, you know, we're never going to be able to recycle these things. And it's very, you know, obviously people want to tell us stuff's recyclable, and we want to believe that stuff's recyclable, but there's this massive gap between what's actually being recycled and what we're using. You know, I think they reckon about 10% of all of the plastic that we've ever used has been recycled, and then of that 10%, only 10% of that, so like 1% really, has ever been recycled more than once. I think they estimate about 5% of all food packaging ever made has been recycled. So there's this huge gap, because plastic doesn't get turned back into the same kinds of products that it starts out. So generally, plastic isn't being made back into the same plastic in the same way that glass jars, like glass would get melted down, made into glass. Metal cans get melted down, made back into metal, but plastic degrades, gets contaminated with food, it becomes brittle over time. So then the plastic that it's recycled into is lesser quality, and then it's less valuable. And then that's harder to recycle. So realizing that recycling was not this kind of amazing solution that we've all kind of been sold, that was a real epiphany for me. And finding out that that soft plastic, you know, like the bread bags and the crisp wrappers, finding out that that gets recycled into traffic bollards and garden benches. Like, I don't want to buy traffic bollards. Like, that's not something I'm ever going to buy. So as a, you know, that's not recycling. That's like a linear system. We eat bread and we eat biscuits and we make garden benches and we make traffic bollards. And at some point, we're going to have enough garden benches. We're going to have enough traffic bollards, but we still want to eat bread. So for me, like, realizing that if I don't want to buy the end product, I need to be thinking about the product at the start. That was kind of one of my real, like, I guess, realizations with this idea that recycling, it's better than not recycling, but it's not kind of perfect. And so I guess when I started out, I just started kind of one step at a time. So, you know, went to the supermarket, walked up and down every single aisle, trying to figure out what was plastic free. It took hours, because when we go to the shops, right, we go to the shops, we buy the same stuff that we always buy, the stuff that's on offer, the stuff we bought last time. We never stop and actually look about what's plastic free or anything really. So going up and down the aisle, looking at what's plastic free, you know, I bought some pasta in a cardboard box, some fruit and vegetables, I got apple juice in a glass bottle, I think a bar of chocolate. And then the next shop I bought some more toilet paper, some more chocolate, some more, you know, the same stuff. And I thought, I'm going to have to start thinking a little bit differently about how I buy things. And from there, I discovered that bulk stores were a thing, and you could take your own containers and refill them. And I discovered that different fruit and veg shops sold different things loose. And kind of slowly, I just changed my habits. And like, I kind of think, like, plastic free is one of those things that it is just like 20,000 swaps or changes or habits or tweaks that we make. It's not one big kind of overarching thing. It's just thousands and thousands of little things added together. And so kind of over time, one by one, you know, as the milk ran out, how do I get milk without plastic? As the toothpaste ran out, how do I get toothpaste without plastic? And kind of just kind of went along like that. And I think at the start I was quite, no, I think actually when I started out, like, I remember one of the first things I did was I bought a reusable coffee cup, and it was from Keep Cup. And at the time, like back in 2012, the plastic pollution thing was nowhere near as kind of known about as it is now. And so Keep Cup was the only brand that sold reusable coffee cups, and they only made plastic ones, they didn't make glass ones. And so I bought this plastic coffee cup. And I remember it was on Facebook or something, and someone who I sort of knew commented and said, well, how is buying plastic being plastic free? And I was like, oh, you know nothing. Of course it's reducing plastic. And then I thought about it some more, and I thought, oh my God, I'm buying plastic to reduce plastic. That doesn't make any sense. I need to eliminate every piece of plastic from my life, for sure. And then kind of had this purist phase where I was like, plastic's got to eliminate it all. And kind of as I went on, sort of more thinking about things, like, first of all, if we got rid of plastic today, like if we said, if, you know, Sydney, of, you know, the state government said, right, plastic's banned starting tomorrow, like, all of those shops are full of plastic already. So we've got to do something with the legacy plastic. So actually recycling plastic and making products that are made of recycled plastic is one way that we're going to close the gap. But also, you know, plastic is pretty useful sometimes. It's not great when we're using it for single-use items that last for minutes, but, you know, medical emergencies or infrastructure or, you know, certain things just are made of plastic. So after having my kind of like purest stage, I've kind of toned it down a bit more. And now I guess when I say plastic free, like, I tend to mean like plastic waste, anything that's avoidable or like refusable. So any use single-use packaging. And then if there isn't a choice, it's choosing the recyclable and recycled plastic over the non-recycled stuff. And I always remember reading an article online a few years ago, and a lady had written this article, and she said, people who say they live plastic free are basically lying. And I read the heading and I was like, what? And she said, I tried to go plastic free, and then I had to get the bus, and the bus is made of plastic. Therefore, people who say they're plastic free, and it's like, no, you're missing the point. It's not about, like, it would be great if buses were made of something else, but like, or maybe it wouldn't, I don't even know. Like, it's not about that. It's about the waste. It's about the single-use stuff. It's about the way that we're using resources, or misusing resources, really. So, you know, having the light switch, you know, the light switch is made of plastic, and lots of things are made of plastic, but it's just about trying to reduce as much plastic as we can, choose alternatives, support companies and brands that are using different materials, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. Yeah, so that's kind of now where I see, like, the plastic, like what plastic free means to me. And I'm sure it'll change again. I kind of think we all, like, you know, we all have different ideas about what things mean, and I kind of think being a purist never really kind of does anyone any favors. There's just one more thing I guess I just wanted to sort of add, was that like, when I do presentations, there's this graph that I always show, and it's basically all of the plastic that was ever made goes up like this, and then recycling kind of goes like this. So there's this huge gap between what's the plastic that's been produced and recycling. And I think the thing about this massive gap is that it just highlights that plastic's this huge issue, but it's going to need everyone to do something. So it's going to need governments and councils to legislate and, you know, do what they can, and it's going to need manufacturers to think about the way they're packaging stuff and reduce their reliance on plastic. And it's going to need stores and supermarkets to not sell the stuff that's completely overpackaged, and, you know, try and support different ways of doing things. And we're going to need designers to be, you know, looking at different materials and different ways to do things, and, you know, returnable schemes and all of those kinds of things. But ultimately, you know, we have a responsibility as individuals and as citizens and as shoppers to, you know, support the stores that are selling the stuff that's not wrapped in plastic, and putting pressure on, you know, writing letters to politicians or store managers and having conversations. And I think we give too much power away as individuals when we wait for somebody to do something about that. And I think, obviously, as individuals, the whole weight of saving the planet doesn't fall on our shoulders. We're obviously part of a bigger solution, but, you know, we shouldn't give our power away and wait for somebody else. And the only reason that governments, you know, are legislating bag bans and are thinking about these things now is because of the pressure, because there's been people talking about the issue, lobbying them, campaigning, and then coming together, that's how we're creating change. So it's not that it's not that you swapping out a straw is going to save the planet, but the government having a straw ban is only going to come when enough people do those little changes, and together that's how we're going to create change. So I really do believe that everyone can make a difference, and sometimes it's just being the one person counted in the movement. You don't have to, you know, be saving the world yourself, but you're part of something bigger, and that's how we're going to create change.
That's awesome. That's really inspiring. No, I love your approach, with, you know, kind of talking about, you know, it's not you must do this and you must be completely plastic free. It's kind of living within, you know, your means, and kind of just starting somewhere. And, you know, I'm really much of the belief, you know, we don't need everybody being perfect at this. We just need everybody to try. And we need everybody, you know, to hack away at it little by little. And when you get more comfortable, then you take the next step. So that kind of leads me in. I'm going to start off. I have a couple quick questions. So I'm going to start off with some questions. While if you in the audience have any questions, now is a great time to either put your hand up if you know how to do that on the Zoom, or start typing your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those. But I'm going to kick us off with some questions. And I have 3 that I'd like to ask. So one is kind of a 2-part question. So I'd like to know, when you started, what was your easiest thing, and what was your hardest thing to switch?
I reckon the easiest thing is probably fruit and vegetables, because I think in Australia, you know, we're really lucky that we grow so much stuff all year round, pretty much. So there's a lot of fresh produce, like excluding the kind of central, I guess, desert areas. Like all of the cities, I would say, in Perth in Australia have really good access to fruit and vegetables. So there's a lot of stuff that's plastic free. Like we're lucky that farmers markets operate, you know, all year round or most of the year. And I never intended to like get healthy by going plastic free, but what I discovered was all of the processed stuff is the stuff that's in plastic, and all of the fresh stuff is the stuff that's not. So yeah, swapping out fruit and vegetables was pretty easy. You've usually got the option of plastic packaged or loose. So that was, yeah, probably the easiest thing. And did you say the hardest thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess also what was the case in 2012 is not necessarily the case in 2020. So there were things in 2012 that I couldn't get plastic free. And now it's much easier to find, like groceries especially. I guess there's a few things that I probably just stopped buying. And I guess whether you stop buying stuff or not is like up to you. Like, so I remember I stopped buying ice cream. That was sad.
You stopped buying ice cream?
Yeah, I did buy an ice cream maker and make my own ice cream, which actually isn't very difficult. But yeah, I remember once I was on an airplane, and you know when you have the meals and then at the end they came around and gave the ice cream, and I was like, I'm not eating the ice cream because it's in plastic. And then I think the person I was with ate their ice cream, and then I was like, you know what, next time I'm going to eat the ice cream. So I've kind of relaxed a bit. I'm like, the ice cream's on a plane. What are they going to do with it? So, but yeah, so actually buying ice cream in those plastic tubs, I haven't ever bought ice cream. It's sad, but there is now an ice cream place actually near us. So in 2019, I think they opened, and now they actually, you can take your own containers and buy ice cream.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
very cool.
So,
that's commitment, Lindsay. Well done.
And it's funny though, because sometimes I think you can commit to stuff and, you know, you're like, yep, I'm not doing it. And then other times, like, you know, I guess everyone's got different things they're willing to compromise or not.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to my next question. As I said before, I'm quite tuned in to reducing my waste. My husband and I, even though we have a child, we have like a 5-liter waste bin tops, maybe like once every 2 weeks. So we're really switched on to it. But one of the things that I actually find a barrier, because we recycle our soft plastics. So our waste bin's quite small, but our recycling, we probably do a little bit of work with that. But I'd like to know, what do you think is a barrier for people to go to the whole food store? Because I think that's something that's the answer for a lot of things of take your own jars, go, get your own rice, go get your own, legumes in some sort, bring your own things. But what do you think is a barrier? Why do you think maybe more people aren't doing it?
I mean, there's obviously I guess there's certain barriers, like physical barriers. Like there's a lady in our zero waste group who's in a wheelchair and she can't access, probably 90% of the bulk store. So there's obviously things like that. I mean, I guess time is one, and I think whether that's perceived or whether that's real, it's different for everyone. I think with some people, they probably think it's going to take more time and be harder. And actually they'd find if they did it that it isn't. But for some people, if they have a routine and it's all sorted. I guess I, don't want to be telling anyone, oh, you should be doing it. It's really easy, everyone, because I don't think that's fair. But I guess it seems quite overwhelming because it's so different, like I said at the start, you can go to the supermarket and you could probably shop your regular shop with your eyes shut, you know where everything is, you could just get it all. And you go to the bulk store and there's millet and amaranth and quinoa and you've got no idea what this stuff is.
That's my problem.
Yeah, and so you're kind of and you can't buy the things, you want to get coconut milk and they don't sell it. And so it's definitely a bit of an adjustment, and probably being confident in the kitchen or being confident enough to try is probably a barrier as well. And it does take longer. Like the first time you go to the box store, you've got no idea what anything is, you've got no idea what half the stuff is, you don't know how to cook it. So I kind of think if people would just start with box stores, just even going and buying herbs and spices and stuff like that. I think sometimes people make the mistake of thinking they have to buy everything from the box store. And so they go in and they're like, oh, the oats were really expensive. I can't shop in the bulk store. And it's like, you don't have to buy the oats. You could start with a few things, or you could just start maybe just going every few months and doing a bit of stuff and kind of transitioning. I think too many people see these things as all or nothing. Like if you're not going to the bulk store every week and buying everything, it therefore doesn't count. And I think that's probably a big mistake. People need to just go in there and start and buy a few things and kind of get started. But barriers is a whole big conversation.
That's really good, because I think when I'm applying that to my own personal life, and I think one of the barriers for me of just getting my foot in the door is thinking I need to be more organized. So I need to be more organized. I need to know what I want. I need to know how many jars I need to maybe think of some recipes, and then it all kind of becomes a little bit too overwhelming to where I just put it aside and I put it in the when I have time basket. But then it kind of just keeps getting pushed. So I think that's really inspiring. Maybe just going in and just starting with buying one thing, even if it's just rice or if it's just oats or something, and then maybe getting a bit of a feel for it. So then I can know next time maybe what I want to get.
I think even going into the bulk store sometimes as well with no intention of buying anything and just figuring out how they work, because sometimes they're really well set up and it's really obvious how to do things, and you take your containers and it's all signposted, and then other ones you kind of go in and everyone's acting like you should know what you're doing, and you're like, do I help myself? Do I ask? I don't know. And so sometimes it's just that, and having a conversation or just kind of sussing out what everyone else is doing and having a look at what they sell. Do they actually sell rice and oats and or do they sell millet and dragon fruit powder and stuff that you literally have no idea what you're going to do with? So yeah, and it is just, sometimes it's just saying, okay, this Saturday I'm going to set aside some time just to do a scouting mission, and slowly.
I might jump in there just because we're running short on time, but we've had some good questions from the chat. So I might be the conduit, and I'll run through some of them. We'll do a quick round. So first question is alternatives to rubbish bags.
So when I started using newspaper. So I was like, what am I going to use? And someone at this workshop was like, oh, why don't you use newspaper? And I was like, oh, how do I, is it complicated? Do I have to do this origami thing? And she literally was like, no, you just put a bit in, put it in. And I was like, oh, I can do that. That's not hard. And like we used to get a local newspaper, but also various cafes and stuff have newspapers. You can ask on Buy Nothing groups on Facebook and just say, does anyone have the newspaper? I often now get people saying, oh, but the trees. Like, I'm not suggesting that you go and buy a brand new newspaper. But then if you start, I guess the problem with like bins is that you need the liner because you're putting in stinky wet stuff. So if you can, separate conversations, start composting or worm farming or all of those things, what you end up putting in your bin is usually unrecyclable plastic and food. If you can get the food out, you then don't need a liner. I've also had people use pillowcases and like wash them out. If you buy things like cat food or dog food in those big 20-litre kind of things, you can use those. Like if you've got any sort of packaging, like I think the worst thing, like just as a concept, the idea of going to the shops and buying something with the sole purpose of putting it in your bin to throw away, like whether that's a normal bag or whether that's a biodegradable bin liner, but you're buying something for the bin, like that doesn't make any sense in terms of resources. So I would use what you've got. Use what you've got.
I love that. So we'll move on to Nicola, who asks about liquids like dishwashing detergent, toothpaste, and this is something that came up in the poll that we ran. 74% of you said grooming and personal care is a challenge. So if we could talk a little bit about those items.
Sure. So a lot of the bulk stores sell, they'll sell dishwashing liquid, they'll sell shampoo, conditioner, all of those kind of things. There's a lot of brands now selling solid versions of, so like soap is kind of great because, as soon as something's solid, you don't need plastic to wrap it. You can wrap it in cardboard or it can be loose. And so a lot of companies are now looking at how to make shampoo soap bars, conditioner soap bars, moisturizer soap bars, lotion soap bars. So all of these kind of solid products. And then of course you can buy them online if you can't get to a store. I think simplifying is really good. Like I used to have, 30 products because I used to go to the department store and buy the stuff that was free when you spent $200, and I had all of these products and going plastic free. I'm like, what even is skin refining pore serum gel. I don't think I actually need that as a product. I think I was con. So, really simplified. So now I use bar soap instead of shower gel, hand wash, face wash, body wash.
Fantastic. So simplify and concentrate, which is what solid items often are.
Yeah.
Great tips. And
can I just add as well, actually, bulk stores now increasingly are selling the ingredients. So if you want to make your own, and making your own tends to be nothing complicated, mixing stuff in a jar, melting stuff and mixing it together. And a lot of the bulk stores now sell those as well.
And you'll be happy to know we're doing a DIY workshop. Ali has posted that in the chat. If you guys are interested, we'll share a link for it. So if you're keen on that, we've got more for you. Here's another question from Emily and Jeremy. How have you managed to stay plastic free during Corona?
Well, in Perth, we were pretty lucky because the bulk stores most of them still continue to use containers. And there was one cafe near us that set up a takeaway thing selling burgers in cardboard, which I bought like 3 times or maybe twice. I don't know, it's my husband. Let's get burgers anyway. Yeah, so I guess like really for me, not much changed. I probably use a couple of extra paper bags, but yeah, like I don't generally buy takeaway. Like I would eat out, but eating out I don't see as replaceable with takeaway. Eating out is an experience. Takeaways when you're too busy to cook. And so I guess with Corona, I was no longer too busy to cook because there was nothing else to do. So that kind of solved that problem. And then the bulk stores kind of was still there for everything else.
Yeah, fantastic. If anyone else has any other questions or if I've missed anything in the chat.
Just like someone said about Indian nuts, which are soap nuts, as a laundry option. So yeah, I have used them. I don't use them now. I just use the laundry powder from the bulk store because they don't sell the soap nuts. But yeah, they're really good. A lot of bulk stores will sell those, and you can just compost them at the end. So that's a good tip.
Excellent. Well, I have a question for you, Lindsay. What keeps you motivated when things get challenging? I'm sure that, you know, as life goes on, like I found, you know, as my lifestyle changes, I find new challenges. So how do you stay motivated as someone who's a leader in this area?
I guess first of all, I'm an optimist. So I kind of think like, but also like, if you look at what happens if we don't do this, you know, it kind of doesn't even bear thinking about. So like we've got to change, like the system's got to change, society's got to change. And so I guess that kind of keeps me motivated, because if I just accepted that we're all doomed, well, that's just too depressing to think about. So yeah, I guess the other thing I really like about sort of plastic-free living and zero waste is it always feels like you're constantly problem solving, you know, so it's always that little challenge of, oh, how could I do this, or how could I do that? So I guess I always see it in that kind of like problem solving kind of fun kind of thing to do. So I guess that helps as well.
Yeah, it is kind of fun, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Any other questions? What are Indian nuts?
So they're like the soap nuts. If you Google soap nuts, you'll see an image. They're sort of like little berries, and they're kind of sticky, and they've got saponin in them, which makes so they foam up when you wash with them. Yeah, someone's asking about bulk stores, but I don't know, like as in where they are and where you are.
Oh, as in, sorry, where are the bulk stores near us?
Yeah.
Bondi Junction. I know there's one in Bondi Junction. That's the only one I know of. Anyone know actually of any more in our area? It's on, what's the street called?
Just a reminder, if anyone needs to ask a question, you'll need to unmute your microphone. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear you. So just go ahead and unmute if you can.
Oxford Street. Naked Foods on Oxford Street.
There's a source in Zetland. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Yeah, there's a great source, the source in Zetland.
It's called the sauce?
The source, yeah.
Source, sorry.
There is an app, I believe it's called it might be called the Bulk app. Somebody has, I know one exists. I'll aim to find it to send out in the email that we follow up. And I know that there are places where you can find listings that people have group sourced and put in an app to make easy.
Awesome.
I just don't know what it's called.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to interrupt without being rude.
Go ahead. Yes, Tipano.
Okay, I know quite a few answers to these questions, so
Wonderful.
I'm not a lot on social media, but I will make an effort to do that because I can answer a lot of these questions, and it's nice to share. I've been trying to do this for a long time, but I get derailed. But I know a lot of answers to it because I'm so old. You know, there's so many of these things that we're trying to get rid of that when I was a young girl, we didn't have them. They've only been introduced lately. So there was an alternative to this. So, and like Lizzie was saying, that it's just thinking about it. So because I've tried, I do have alternatives that I can share with people if I know how to do that. Like, is there a link or somewhere you go and people ask questions and then I can just put my answer in? And maybe somebody will use it, maybe they don't use it. A bit like how I see TripAdvisor, you know, you go in, you put your question is, and maybe is there something like that on social media? Because I'm not on social media, I don't know. Like, is there a thing where people ask questions and then people go in and answer them for recycling plastic? Is there a place that I could write down and then join?
It's a great idea. I'm not sure I know of anything just quite like that.
Yeah, I think for me as like a user, if I just had a question, I generally just type it in Google in general. But as a platform for you to go to write your answers, I don't know what the best answer for you is. What I do think though, that might be worth, are you part of one of the community groups?
Which way?
Are you part of a community group in general?
Not really. Like, what do you mean?
So we in Waverley. Are you in Waverley?
Surrey Hills.
Surrey Hills. Okay.
I go to any other council that will let me learn about sustainability.
Yeah. No, my just initial thought, and it's there's probably we could talk a lot about this. Is my initial thought is maybe if you were to join a community group where you can start to share those answers and maybe continue to go to like the Plastic Free July events and just talk to people and just share that knowledge. And then, yeah, I think to answer your initial question of like a platform where to go to write it down, I don't know. But
I'm not on social media, so I thought maybe there was, because everyone talks about blogs, which I'm not on, but I thought there might have been a Sydney blog or.
Yeah.
Maybe, Francis, what we can do is like, we'll have your contact details and I can ask around council and the other neighbouring councils if they know of a platform that might be the best idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Ali. Because Surrey Hills, is that City of Sydney? Is that right?
Yes, but they don't do it. There was one question I do have about my husband's medicine. It comes in all the medicine is packed with plastic, and also if you have a Panadol or something, but they put all his medicine in this plastic thing which is paper. So I was thinking, if I put that in but it's contaminated, like I can't put my daughter lives in Marrickville, my son lives in Randwick, so they get all my stuff that Randwick Council and Marrickville Council kindly recycle that City of Sydney doesn't. So I share it. So I was thinking of putting that thing in bucket of water and letting the paper that's contaminating it or any of those things, and then letting it soak and then rubbing off the paper, and then I just have a clean, because I know that you can't contaminate the recycling, and I've got this clean plastic, which is hard. Can I put that into recycling because I've taken away the paper? Or if you buy a Panadol, how do you buy a Panadol without the alfoil? How do you get the plastic? Do I have to peel off the plastic and then put that And is that alfoil the alfoil that you can make into a big ball?
Yeah, so good question. So I feel like I've heard a couple questions there. So I might actually direct that question to Beth. Beth, are you online still? Yeah. So did you hear the question, Beth? And the different types, if she was to pull the materials apart in terms of soaking it and getting the paper away from the plastic lining? Was that, it was a plastic lining, did I?
If you can separate the composite material, you can definitely recycle those two different materials, the aluminum and the plastic. And regarding containers with a paper label, if they're clean plastic containers, they can go in the recycling, that's fine. Even with the paper label, I wouldn't worry too much about getting them super clean. The main issue for the contamination and the recycling is actually food staying in containers. So you want to make sure the food's rinsed out before you put cans and other containers in.
What I meant was that they say that the hard plastic, if it's got another thing on top, like paper, if you put it in the recycling bin, it contaminates the bin.
Are you talking about a plastic container or a plastic sheet?
Well, just say, think of medicine, how you've got two things. You've got, you buy Panadol, and it's got alfoil, and then you've got the plastic bubble. You press out the Panadol.
Right, so that one you would split apart, if you can. I mean, I think it's quite hard.
So they're the things I want to know, where I can go to find out how to, you know, to pull all this apart. It's just somebody knows.
Well, there's a really good website called Recycle Near You that gives you all kinds of information about how to recycle different materials. So that could be a go-to website for you.
Yeah.
I've been on the dark, and I've been on the recycling one about all the people that, you know, if you have toothpaste containers, you take it to your dentist. I've done all that. I know that. It's just stuck with the medicine. So I just thought I'd throw it out there if anyone else has.
Yeah, I think medicine medicine can be a bit of a tricky one, but timpano? Yes. Can I follow, would you mind if I followed up with you specifically in an email and got your number and gave you a call later in the week, and we can talk about some of the items specifically? So we can, yeah, no, I love your enthusiasm. I love your questions. And I think that there could be a lot of value in that. So I would love to follow up with you specifically on that. If you wouldn't mind if I reach out to you personally on your email, is that okay?
Yes.
Awesome, great. Thanks very much. Was there another question in the chat that we wanted to get to beforehand, Liz? Did I miss anything? I think there's been a few things going through. I do want to raise that we have gone a few minutes actually overboard. So unless there's a dying question that anyone wants to get out before I wrap up with a couple of comments, is there anyone who else wants to come online and ask a quick question?
I'll just make a quick comment. There are some really interesting comments in the chat. So if you want to save the chat to read later, you can click on the 3 dots in the corner and click Save Chat. It'll save it to your computer, and you can look at some of the resources that have been shared throughout the evening.
Yes, I agree. I think there's been some really, really good information in here. Yeah, reduce your footprint. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, like I said, I know we've mentioned about 5 minutes over time, so thanks for staying with us. I just want to say a really big thank you to Beth and Lindsay for being our speakers tonight. I know I got a lot of inspiration out of hearing from both of you, and I'm sure everyone else has too. So I didn't mention in the beginning, everybody, but this session has been recorded. So we're going to be sending out the link to everybody at the end of this session. Please, if you have any issues with that, I do apologize that I didn't mention that in advance, but the session was recorded. So we're sending it out as a resource. So look forward to seeing that coming in through your email. And tomorrow is July, it's the 1st of July, so it's the start of Plastic Free July. So we're going to also be following up with everybody about how you can sign up for Plastic Free July if you haven't, and we're also going to be sending everyone a link to the resources and the workshops that we're doing over the next few weeks with in partnership with a really great community groups in the Waverley area. So there's a lot of great activities. Everything's online as well, being COVID safe. So feel free to join in as many of those as you can. And yeah, I just wanted to say a really big thank you for joining us tonight. I hope everyone got something out of tonight. Liz, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, that was great. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Beth.
Yes.
Thank you, Leslie.
It was my first